Welcome, Stream Team. This is Bitstream coming to you today. And I wanted to talk to everybody just a little bit about the tax cuts that were just passed and how that affects cryptocurrency in general, and also just my general thoughts on cryptocurrency as a whole and its future, and how it all kind of fits together. And I wanted to take it back to, a few basic concepts that I think we need to understand when we're evaluating what to do with our cryptocurrency, Bitcoin in the future and everything, and just tie a couple of things together and connect some dots. I want to look at a little bit of history so we can see really the power of inflation. So let's take a look at this inflation calculator here. All right. So $1,000 in 1940. Let's just do $1,000, right? 1940. What is that in today's dollars? We've got $17,745 in today's dollars for $1,000 in 1940, right? So a 1940s millionaire would have $17,745,000 today. So that's just, when my father was a kid, right? 1940s. A gallon of gas, if a gallon of gas was the same as it was today back in 1940, was it $2.20 or something now? It would be as if it was $39.04 today. And then you could also extrapolate out into the future. Today, if today is as far out as 1940 is from today, that's what a gallon of gas is going to look like then. What is that, 70 years from now or something? So $40 gallon of gas. Okay, so that's inflation for you. And that is exacerbated by tax cuts. So every time the government doesn't have enough money to pay its bills, it adds to the money supply along with fractional reserve lending, and it leads to this. So I just wanted to show you guys that. Also, just a real quick note on the history of inflation. Inflation was in check for the majority of history of the United States until President Nixon. And what happened then is Nixon took the US dollar off of the gold standard. So it used to be, like I said, that every dollar was tied to a unit of gold in the treasury. In order for more dollars to be created, more gold had to be put in the treasury for it to be tied to. And then Nixon came along and took us off of that. And ever since the day that happened, if you see any charts about it, you look it up on the internet, you'll see the day that we went off the gold standard, inflation went nuts, relatively speaking, because there was no anchor for the dollar anymore. Okay. We also added the fractional reserve lending system, which allowed banks to print money via use of loans. And we are now in the fiat currency system, where, in other words, it's only valuable because we say it is. And we also determine how valuable it is. So I could charge whatever I want with this how much fiat currency I want for whatever I want. And there's nobody that can really say anything otherwise, with the exception of certain price gouging laws and things of that nature. There is no other force acting on it. There is no limited supply. You can have unlimited dollars, which means inflation can go on ad infinitum, forever. Okay, so now let me get into cryptocurrency by comparison and what all of that has to do with crypto, right? So cryptocurrency is inherently deflationary. So what does that mean? Every cryptocurrency has a limited supply. For example, Bitcoin, there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin ever created. Okay. So since cryptocurrency is priced in dollars most of the time, the value is derived by how many dollars it's worth. So we'll say, $17,000 Bitcoin and all that kind of stuff. And the dollar is inherently inflationary, which means it's going to get cheaper over time compared to a currency that is going to stay right where it is, all else being equal, Bitcoin and currencies like it will get more valuable in terms of dollars over time. All it has to do is just sit there and stay the same. And by virtue of no more being created, it will get more valuable in dollars, just like everything else. So the currency is going to pretty much go up like a stock or real estate because it's deflationary, inherently deflationary. It behaves like an asset. And because of other things about it, it's also going to add to the deflationary pressure, which I think adds to why we saw a meteoric rise in the value this year, because number one, people aren't going to want to spend it. So it started as a currency, but it's really behaving like an asset. It's behaving like a stock. It's behaving like holding real estate. It's going up, it's going up, it's going up. So what does that mean? People want to hoard it. People want to buy it. They don't want to sell it. They don't want to get rid of it. They want to have more of it and not less of it, or the same amount of it. They want to have more of it because they believe it's going to go up in value. That is going to increase the value of it over time. People use it as an investment vehicle, a savings vehicle, and not a currency to transact with for the most part, even though you can. This also causes more motivated buying because it's harder and harder to pry Bitcoin out of the hands of people. I don't want to spend my Bitcoin on a cup of coffee. I'd rather spend dollars because dollars are going to devalue and my Bitcoin is going to increase in value. So I don't want to exchange that for something that's not also as valuable if I can help it. It can lead to a bubble because if the buying outstrips, the actual inherent value of it, or if people are buying just because other people are buying, which is usually the sign of a bubble, it can lead to an increase in price faster than what is justified. And it's happened a couple of times with Bitcoin. So a bubble doesn't mean that the underlying thing is without value. It just means that it's going up faster than it should. So it's going to correct, and it's probably going to correct hard. And it's done so about 5, 6, 7 times, I believe. And that's fine. The fact that we've had more than one bubble in Bitcoin already is pretty good, actually. I think it's good because it just shows that even though we've already had bubbles, people still keep coming back to it. The supply is capped, and counterfeiting is systematically virtually impossible. So I hate to say fully impossible, but from studying the blockchain and how it works and the decentralized nature of it with the mining and checking and the public ledger and everything like that, it's, from what I understand, we don't know how it's possible to counterfeit it. You would have to have immense computing power under your control to be able to counterfeit Bitcoin, for example. So you'd have to have more computing power than like half of the miners that exist and all that kind of stuff. So it's just not feasible, I should say. If you contrast this against fiat currency, which is already inherently inflationary, we hear about counterfeit money all the time. And what does that do? That just adds to inflation because it's flooding the system with money that is, not real, so it floods even more dollars into the system. So if somebody's sitting there with the counterfeit printing press printing off millions and millions of dollars that gets accepted, and they buy stuff with it, and then that money goes into the system, the inflation damage is already done. So again, crypto is most often measured in dollar value, since that's what we spend to function. That's what we pay our taxes with. That's what the government accepts. That's what our stores accept. Although crypto, you can spend it with, cards and everything like that, it still has to get converted into dollars first before it's accepted in most places. And again, why would you spend your Bitcoin at this point? It makes more sense to collect it versus get rid of it. All this kind of adds up to mean that while crypto is deflating or getting more valuable, fiat is also inflating. and getting cheaper. So the confluence of the two happening at the same time means a great rise in the value of cryptocurrency.